Julio, I want to thank you for joining me today here in Miami. You've been with Riedel for 19 years, so I need to ask you this. How do you pronounce the company name? Is it Riedel or is it Riedel? I don't know. People get confused.
It is Riedel.
Riedel, okay.
We have a
Got it right.
German.
Got it right. Let's go.
Absolutely.
Let's go.
Yeah, Riedel like needle is kind of the way to say it. And yeah, whether you mispronounce it or not, I love that people at least know what the brand is. But the correct pronunciation for sure is Riedel.
Perfect. And it's been around for a while. 1756.
1756. Yes.
Damn.
Long time.
Longer than 19 years.
A little bit longer.
A little bit longer.
A little bit, yeah.
But you guys specialize in something called, I believe it's varietal-specific glassware, or, in other words, grape-specific glassware. And as the audience can see right now, we have beautiful wine glasses from the Veloce collection, right? Veloce collection.
Riedel Veloce.
Riedel Veloce. And we do not have Riedel Veloce plastic cups because you guys don't make that, but we have wines in plastic cups here. So what are we doing here? What's the point of this here?
Yeah, so to answer your first part of the comment is, yes, we are known as the wine glass company. I think the Maximilian Riedel has commented that we have over 300 different shapes and sizes.
And Maximilian being the 11th generation
of the Maximilian Riedel.
Okay.
But today we've chosen 4 because these are actually the 4 most consumed grapes on the planet. And we also want to make sure that when we invite our guests to come to these Riedel wine experiences, that they can remember an experience and also walk away from the experience, because otherwise we overpour the wines.
That's true. So you mentioned grape specific. These are the most consumed grapes. So what 4 grapes do we have in front of us?
So from left
now?
to right, obviously we have Sauvignon Blanc glass. The second glass as our Chardonnay glass, oak Chardonnay glass to be specific. Pinot Noir, glass number 3, and Cabernet Sauvignon, glass number 4.
Awesome. Perfect. And I want to thank you because you also gave me the liberty to choose the wines here. So for people watching here, you'll get to see the wines later on, but we have the Saint-Supéry, the Sauvignon Blanc, the 2023 vintage. Again, a very aromatic wine, Sauvignon Blanc being a wine that tends to drink very, very young. So got to choose that. I had it 3 weeks ago at a steakhouse in Miami Beach, and it was nice. I didn't have it with steak. I had it something else. But we also have a trio of wines from Paul Hobbs, an incredible winemaker based in Sonoma County, who also makes a lot of wine in Napa. So we have the Pinot Noir from the West Sonoma coast. We also have the Chardonnay, the oaked Chardonnay. I believe it's 36% new oak, so we're definitely going to feel that in these glasses. And then lastly, Paul Hobbs does make a more accessible line of wines called Crossbarn. And I saw this at the shop, 2019 being one of my favorite vintages for Sonoma and Napa both. And yeah, so I tried Sonoma County Cabernet Sauvignon, and I think they're all going to complement with the aromas here. So what's this comparison here? What are we trying to identify between these two? What are we trying to teach?
Sure. So the idea is that if you love wine, hopefully you also have an appropriate glassware to match, right? And a lot of people don't know that the glassware makes a difference. And these are obviously 4 different shapes and sizes. And if you really look at what's in front of you, we started from left to right, a Sauvignon Blanc, and you notice it's actually the smallest glass on the table, being the quote-unquote more of the basic of the 4 glasses or the 4 wines that we're about to try, which this glass focuses a little bit on minerality, which is what Sauvignon Blanc has. Then you look at another white wine, glass number 2, a much more opulent glass here. And here is the idea is that because of the oak age, the acidity levels will also be increased. So when we take a sip from this glass, you're going to notice a much different aroma, a much different flavor profile. Moving on to glass number 3, even though they're slightly similar, glass number 2 and number 3, glass number 3 is actually meant for Pinot Noirs and Nebbiolos. And if you actually pick them up side by side exactly as you notice that they have the same bowl, but the Chardonnay glass is cut a little bit lower. So the idea is when we taste out of this glass, glass number 2 is actually going to hit you more towards the middle of the palate, versus glass number 3 is actually going to be focused more towards the tip of the tongue.
Got it. And I want to talk about technicality of glass right now. So I hold a glass, and you have the base, the stem, and the bowl, right? So we're looking at every component of glass. What I notice is the stems are pretty long.
Yes.
Is that more of an aesthetic factor, or what's that about?
Yeah, so I guess we failed to talk about what Riedel Veloce is all about.
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier that we have over 300 different shapes and sizes. We have what we consider wine-friendly glassware, meaning a little bit more accessible, basic, a red, a white, champagne flute. And then we progressed to what we consider our core, grape varietal-specific. And Riedel Veloce was actually introduced in 2022 as the lightest and thinnest machine-made glass ever produced.
Machine-made, yeah.
Machine-made. Actually, as you mentioned, they're tall, they're very light, and they actually feel like they're handmade, but they're actually machine-made.
You've been to Austria many times where Riedel is based. I mean, do these glasses break more than at my own house, or does it not happen too often?
I guess it always depends on how much you've had to drink.
Exactly.
That's always the way I like to answer that. But they actually are dishwasher friendly.
They are dishwasher.
Yes,
That's huge. That's huge because all the time that the glasses break is when I'm doing this with the sponge.
Yes.
And then all you do is one wrong move, boom.
Yeah,
done.
and we actually have a beautiful website, Riedel.com, and actually just introduced app Riedel, which is available on Android or Apple. And actually, there's a great video there I'm showing you how to correctly polish your glassware.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, these are polished to a T. So, so we have these wines here. So the point is to basically show the difference in these wines. So should we grab this and then
so let's start with the Sauvignon Blanc. So the cup all the way to your left, and evenly pour the content into glass number 1 and glass number 2.
Evenly pour this into glass number
1 and number 2. And you notice this table mat that's included in each one of these packages has a giant number onto it. So when we say put it in glass number 1 and 2 or 3 or 4, easily identifiable.
These mats come with every box that you
Yes, they do.
get here. Okay.
Yes.
Amazing.
So since we're starting obviously with Sauvignon Blanc, the idea is we love to look at the wine, right? It kind of tells us what varietal we're drinking, in a way speaking. You notice a bit more of a pale color compared to cup number B. So we're going to pick up glass number 1. And the first thing that we love to do is to nose wine. It's whether to get your senses motivated, right? It's like walking into your favorite restaurant and you smell the beautiful garlic or the beautiful aromas. It gets you hungry, it gets you excited. And the right wine in the right glass definitely
I'm
gets that
salivating
going.
already.
So again, just on the nose, aroma-wise, whether you've never had Saint-Cyprien or Sauvignon Blanc period, this is exactly the nose that you want every single time. And for me, I always like to say it's like meeting a person for the first time. You like it or you don't like it. And I would say if you never had Saint-Cyprien or Sauvignon Blanc, this nose, you would say, I'm ready for a sip.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right?
The aromas are definitely out
So obviously, aromas are fully expressed in glass number 1. Definitely get some exotic notes versus the same wine out of a different vessel, which is a Chardonnay glass. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
And now you notice there's a bit more green component.
Wow.
A bit more one-dimensional the wine is. And again, if you refresh your memory out of glass number 1.
I want to confirm. I have not done this exercise yet. I know your team Maximilian has done these seminars in Miami. I've never been able to attend one. So actually, another reason why you're here is I want to do this seminar right here, and this is why. But sorry, keep going.
No, it's okay.
Keep going.
So again, just to kind of focus on just the aroma. Right? Glass number 1, you notice fully expressed.
Way
lots
more
of exotic
pronounced.
fruits,
Way more pronounced.
Versus glass number 2, it definitely is a bit more muted, the wine. A bit more concentrated as well. I always like to say it's a bit more one-dimensional. And the idea is that, talking about trying the wine for the first time just on the nose. Imagine if you were given the Saint-Cyprien as your first experience of glass number 2, even though it's a beautiful glass, on the nose, which is the first experience, you would say, maybe Saint-Cyprien, maybe the vintage, whatever it is, but never kind of really blame the glass as far as getting that expression out. So not the exact same exposure.
No, and it's not, we're not talking about like a small difference. This is a very noticeable difference in just the nose. I haven't tasted the wine yet, but in just the nose, it's very noticeable. And now I'm thinking like of going to a restaurant and it's like the glassware is so important. But going back to the actual idea of glass, right? Is glass itself just a neutral component? It lets the wine shine on its own. Like why aren't we serving wines in plastic or like in,
Well, Mr. Riedel has always said that if we were to produce the same glasses in the same dimensions, plastic would have zero influence unless it's the aroma, right? Because plastic also is a bit porous, right? So the idea to get the full expression of the wine is to have clean glasses, right? Depending on where you live, obviously there's a little bit more of a water hardness in a way speaking. And of course, the way that you take care of your glassware makes a difference. And a lot of people at home obviously put it in the cupboard, so they have a bit of a lacquer situation going on, and they get a little bit musty in there.
Yeah,
but
that's
having
one
the
thing.
proper care for obviously you don't want anything to get in the way of the full expression of the wine.
Yeah, or like sometimes people say dishwasher soap.
Exactly.
Give it
Yeah,
that.
and especially at our favorite restaurant, sometimes the dishwasher may not be serviced for quite some time, and it definitely gets a bit of it in the way.
When you go out with Maximilian, or you go out on your own, right, with your wife or with friends or whatever, is the first thing you do? You kind of smell it?
100%, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, if they don't use Riedel glassware, I always bring my own for sure.
Oh.
If I'm drinking wine that night.
Yeah. I have a buddy who has the Riedel suitcase who brings it, plops it on the table, opens it.
There's no better way.
It's
for
perfect.
Sure. Yeah.
It's like,
especially of the caliber of wines that you're about to drink.
Yeah, and there's no glass corkage policy, which is I don't
No,
know.
there's not.
There's not, which is a really, really, really good thing. But but keep going. So you have these two differences.
So again, just on the nose, again, from one glass to the next, even though there are two beautiful Riedel glasses, one for sure fully expressed, the second glass not so much. Now, let's go ahead and dive right in once more on the nose.
Yeah.
Get our senses motivated. And again, the Saint-Supré is just popping on the nose. And the one thing to pay attention to is the rim diameter. As you can see from the 4 glasses on our table, the rim diameter on glass number 1 is the narrowest. So actually, if you point your glass a little bit away from you, as if you're going to get the wine out, you notice as it comes to the rim, the wine becomes very pointy, meaning that when you take a sip from this glass, it's actually going to hit you just behind the tip of the tongue, balancing the acidity and the minerality, but boosting the fruit component. So let's go ahead and take a quick sip.
I forgot to spit. This is going to be a long show.
It is almost 5 o'clock.
Yeah,
so it's okay.
that's very true. That's very, very true.
But you notice the minerality, which is what this wine is all about. Beautiful, crisp, fresh, the temperature, very nice. And you notice when you took a sip from this glass, right behind the tip of the tongue, a little bit of acidity, minerality, but nicely balanced. And I'm going to continue to throw the word balance out there because every time we have the right wine in the right glass, balance, whether it's acidity, minerality, fruit component, all that fun stuff.
And I feel like having the right glassware is also a service to the winery, right? I mean, the work it takes to make each bottle that's on the table and higher quality wines, higher level wines, when you have the right glassware, you're actually tasting it the way like a Christopher Nolan movie. Like he wants you to watch it in 35 millimeter and IMAX. He doesn't want you to watch it any other way. And glassware is like the same thing. I feel like we're doing the winery a service.
100%, because what we're about to experience, the same wine in another Riedel glass, I think is exactly what you're referencing right now. So let's go ahead and go glass number 2. And by the way, as I'm speaking, this beautiful wine is still lingering on our palates.
Yeah.
Definitely asking for another sip. Now the same wine, once again on the nose. Again, it's just missing something that's much more muted. And take a sip. Now you notice the wine did not hit you at the tip of the tongue, more towards the middle of the palate.
Yeah.
Now you have a bit of a Granny Smith apple situation here, and much more dry. Not the same mouthfeel. Actually, the wine appears to be warmer as well.
Yeah.
And the same initial thought that we had in glass number 1, now it's a very short-lived experience.
Yeah. It's like volume. I don't know.
The crisp minerality, the freshness, crisp wine that we enjoyed out of glass number 1 now is very, very different. And again, if you were to have this wine for the first time in this glass, you might think twice, perhaps, because it's not the same experience. And now the weight of the wine also appears to be much more different. Again, a bit more of a bitter component. I feel like the acidity is now unbalanced, and the same minerality that we loved out of glass number 1 is basically lost. And it's not as refreshing. Mm-hmm. It's not as crisp. And again, talking about a second sip, it's kind of lost.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think when you took a sip from this wine glass, you notice that the wine hit you more towards the middle of the palate, which is what the glass is intended to do, but an incorrect wine.
So what's playing out here is surface area, right? Because if I look at these, this is much wider and this is much narrower. So is this sort of like, because it's tighter together, it's sort of giving you more volume, more power? Is that
so obviously there's two kind of sciences behind Riedel. One is the rim diameter, which is what we focus the flow of the wine into your palate.
Like you were saying. Yeah.
Right? So it's obviously there's the sweetness part of it, there's the acidity, tannins, and bitterness. So obviously depending on the DNA of the grape, we focus the wine to be perfectly delivered into your palate. And then there's the bowl size. The bowl size has to do 100% with aroma, because in this glass, you notice fully expressed, versus in this large glass is very muted and lost. And it's not because of the wine itself, because we're going to experience from the next glasses that even into red wines, it has the same idea.
Yeah, and with Sauvignon Blanc, with this type of glass, it also resembles what most people might see as a flute. To be honest, like the smaller, more tighter. Is it the same idea behind that, or is flute just totally different ballgame?
Well, we do create flutes, as you know, but we actually do recommend more like a white wine glass for drinking sparkling and champagne.
Oh,
for sure.
okay.
Yes.
Okay. So if we had a champagne, this would be
Depending on the champagne. Because if it's a Blanc
okay.
de Blanc, we would recommend glass number 1 out of the 4 on the table. And if it's a Blanc de Noir, Pinot Noir base, we would actually recommend glass number 3.
Ah, okay. Okay.
And we can talk about that later.
Yeah.
When we get to Pinot Noir.
Yeah. Do you want to do the
But yeah, why don't we get a quick repair sip back to glass number 1?
Okay.
I always like to say we don't want to live it on a bitter note. So let's go ahead and back to glass number 1.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Acidity's back, minerality's back, and the beautiful fruit. That crisp, fresh product that we're looking at, 2023, very young vintage, just back. And the temperature, by the way, also back. And by the way, so that when our wonderful guests take these glasses home, one of the fun things about the Vito Veloce collection, besides being the elegant glasses and the appropriate vessels that they are, we actually have written on the base the varietals that belong in these glasses, so that you never put an incorrect wine in these glasses.
Ah, okay, got it.
So in this glass, as you can see, it says Sauvignon Blanc on it.
Riedel Sauvignon Blanc.
And the same thing for Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, Nebbiolo, and Cabernet Merlot.
You have to add like 3 exclamation marks behind each varietal. Remember to use this so you can enjoy.
Yeah, because otherwise, you're gonna say that the glasses don't work, and they definitely will work if you have the right wine.
They really do, and I feel like when you taste them really rapidly, you taste this and then very quickly go to that, like the memory's still there and you see the difference.
Yeah, you got that initial picture profile in the right glass, and in the second one, it's definitely a bit of a negative experience.
Wow.
So we're done with Sauvignon Blanc.
Okay.
And we can pour it back into cup number A, so we can move on to the next varietal.
Yep. The aesthetic as well is really beautiful. Do you guys take the use into account first? Like this is going to be best for this, but they're also beautiful glasses. I mean, a thin stem, that's also taken account as well, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
aesthetic,
I guess.
For us, form has function. And obviously with the family history, since the first varietal-specific glass was introduced in the late 50s, we know how important having the right shape and size of glasses are for all these beautiful wines at the same time. And by the way, this collection is a very modern design, as you can see. They're all in the same height. There's, I think, about 3 or 4 more shapes in the collection to finalize it. But yeah, they're all the same height and they're beautiful, elegant. Just kind of, I would like to say this is kind of like the cashmere sweater of wine glasses.
Got it.
And I know you Floridians don't use a lot of sweaters, except for sometimes in January and February. But I think you understand the point.
Yeah, maybe three or 4 weeks. Like you said, you were shoveling snow yesterday.
I was shoveling snow yesterday, but I'm here now.
Yeah, you're here now.
I'm melting.
Got to text the family. It's too hot here. It's too hot here. I want to go back. But oak Chardonnay. So,
yeah. So now, obviously, please let us know. And what we want to do now is evenly pour into glass number 1, 2, and 3. The oak Chardonnay into 1, 2, and 3.
Got it. Okay.
And please let us know about the wine.
Yeah, this is a really fun exercise to do at home. Like order the set, order the wines, bring a group of people.
Yeah.
And also,
it's really fun. Obviously, if you love wine and you're kind of just tired of doing the same thing, this is just an amazing experience. And you can also be like almost a magician and not even show or tell your guests what you're drinking and say, all right, try this wine and what do you think? And do the same wine in 3 different glasses. And they would think it's 3 completely different wines.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, they're the same.
They'll know the difference.
Yeah. So now we're moving on to oak Chardonnay. And obviously, we're going to be trying this Paul Hobbs. And we're going to start with glass number 2. And glass number 2, which we just nosed and we just tasted, was not exactly fun for the Sauvignon Blanc. But now we have the right wine in the right glass and on the nose.
By the way, but before, what does swirling do? Why do people swirl?
I always like to say swirling is to release the beautiful bouquet in wine, because wine is like oil and vinegar, right? If you let it settle, they kind of split apart. So you want to get all these molecules ready to go, mixed up in here, and definitely get a full spectrum of aromas.
It's so tough when I tell people, when people are like, how do you swirl the glass? It's so hard to teach. It's like, it's all in the wrist, but then they're like, they don't know how to do it.
Yeah, I think there's a nice little trick is, just start on the table.
Yeah.
Get a little bit more comfortable and just as my vice president, helicopter up,
Yeah.
So once again, on the nose, Now we have the right wine in the right glass. And again, you definitely get some of that vanilla notes. And obviously, this is more of that elegant Chardonnay, more of a light to medium oak, not that super heavy oak wine, which in my opinion makes it a little bit more elegant. But you definitely get some of that vanilla notes. Definitely get a bit of that oak notes as well. But on the nose, just a very pleasant nose as well.
Yeah,
Bit
you
of
really
a butter
feel,
note as well.
Yeah, the
Buttery.
brioche. You feel a little bit those secondary notes that really
So
it's beautiful.
So on the nose, again, now you have the right wine in the right glass. Let's go back to glass number 1, where we enjoyed Sauvignon Blanc. Now let's say you forgot that this is a Sauvignon Blanc glass. What happens to oak Chardonnay in the nose? And I would say here, if you were blindfolded, you would say, where's the wine? Because it's literally almost non-existent.
Yeah. No, it's like you see the whole horizontal wine here versus here. It's sort of similar. You see more of a vertical look at it.
Yeah. I really have to dig deep to find some notes in here. And if anything, maybe a hint of alcohol.
But it's also that. It's like when you're tasting these wines, you need to look for the right components. And like the Sauvignon Blanc component is trying to highlight, I think, a very pronounced flavor profile versus Chardonnay is more of like a round silk dress or something where you're trying to look at different things. And I feel like it's giving me like the Sauvignon Blanc power here versus more of a, I don't know, more of a holistic 360 look here at what Chardonnay is. Oaked Chardonnay. And you say here, you're very specific. You said oaked Chardonnay. What would happen if it was unoaked? It's just not a great representation, right?
Right.
It's just
so obviously the acidity, the tannins level will obviously be different, which we would then recommend something closer to glass number 1.
Got it.
For an unoaked wine.
Unoaked. Okay.
So the same wine in glass number 3 on the nose.
Okay. The glass number 3, by the way, guys, is a Pinot Noir glass that we're having.
And again, it's a bit more challenging to enjoy because definitely much more alcohol focused.
It's such a good wine though that it's like I love it. I would enjoy it in all the glasses, but I do understand that the Chardonnay glass is showing it how it's supposed to be shown. Yeah.
Yeah. And the reason why we love doing this is that unfortunately there's a misconception that, as we all know, Chardonnay and Pinot Noir basically go in the same region. So one glass should work for both. But on the nose, just on this Chardonnay in a Pinot Noir glass, definitely not fully expressed. And for me, I would say much more of a perfume nose that would throw me off.
Wow.
Compared to back to glass number 2,
yeah,
that buttery, oaky, vanilla notes, which again is what we want.
Yeah, it's.
Now, going back to the rim, as we experienced from glass number 1, it was much more towards the tip of the tongue. Now, when we take a sip from glass number 2, you're going to notice that the wine is going to hit you more towards the middle of the palate, balancing the acidity, boosting a little bit of the soft mineralities, and softening the tannins, and again, focusing on the fruit component.
But where it hits on the palate, is that all rim technique?
100%. Yeah.
Okay.
Because if I were to have the same wine, which we're going to experience it in this glass, hitting you in a different part of the palate, it completely throws it off.
Okay.
So on the nose, once again.
Damn.
Just a beautiful, elegant nose. So thanks for choosing the Chardonnay.
I want to do these podcasts every single day, so I just drink such good wine.
And let's take our first sip of Chardonnay. Temperature. I don't think we've talked about temperature so much, especially here in Florida. Warm day today. Chardonnay is perfect, but sometimes they're underserved as far as temperature. This temperature for me is perfect. You don't want it too cold. You don't want it too warm. And right now, you notice that the wine hit you right at the middle of the palate. A little bit of the tannins, a little bit of the acidity, fruit. Elegant, whether you're pairing this with a little bit of cheese, a little bit of salmon, it's just perfectly paired.
Yeah, I was focusing a lot on, because you were talking about, the rim focuses on where on the palate it's hitting. And when you say mid-palate, you're kind of focusing on the middle of the, right here.
Yeah, you notice that the wine kind of goes towards the sides, and you feel a little bit of the
It totally skips over the front, goes there.
So this glass was perfect for this type of wine because you notice that the wine kind of rolled towards the sides, a little bit of the tannins that come from this, and then the acidity, which is what Chardonnay is all about, perfectly balanced.
It's really cool because I think when most people drink wine, when everyone drinks wine, they're not this technical about tasting. And this is the first time I'm really present with every detail about drinking wine. Usually you just drink wine, you're like, this is gorgeous wine or this wine sucks. but this is the way to really focus on the technicality.
This is definitely the Riedel way.
Yeah, it's
All
very
right.
focused.
So the same wine
Yeah.
in a glass that's a bit more one-dimensional. Let's see what happens to Chardonnay.
Ooh,
Now you notice it's much more green.
send it back. Send it
Very
back.
green, right? The
Yeah,
temperature, green, bitter, metallic. So again, the same wine, completely different experience. Because again, now you notice that the wine hit you towards the tip of the tongue, completely unbalanced in the acidity and the tannins.
Wow, also where it hits you, like you said, it's more of the front, and you can't really control where it goes. It's not like you can be like, I want to try to enjoy this, and I'll try to make it go here.
Yeah,
the glass controls it.
And if anything, you probably want to take another sip of water because your mouth feels a little bit on the drier side. So you want to refresh it again with a nice cold glass of water instead of another sip of wine.
And the temperature, I don't know. It
appears to be warmer because that green component definitely overpowers now.
Wow.
Now, can this experience get any worse?
Like, can this experience get any worse?
Yes.
Chardonnay
Chardonnay in a glass like number 3.
in a
Let's
glass
see what
of
happens.
number 3.
On the
Okay.
nose, once again.
Okay.
Again,
I thought that was pretty.
this is kind of the good, the bad, the ugly.
the good, the bad, the ugly. Okay, I like that. I like that a lot.
So we've not tried this glass yet, but you notice when you take a sip from this glass, it's going to hit you just behind the tip of the tongue, which is what the glass is intended to do. But for Chardonnay, let's see what happens.
Wow. Okay. I get what you're saying there. It's like you have to work to get the fullness of the wine. I have to get the wine all over my palate to really enjoy it versus here right when it hits.
So
There you go.
you get an initial, what I like to say, kind of like pleasure, and then afterwards it just falls apart. Then the acidities overpower. It's a much more dry wine, a little bit more on the bitter side. And again, just not that refreshing, beautiful wine that we enjoyed out of glass.
The rim is so much more closed.
Yeah.
If you look at the rim there, there's so much difference.
So the idea is that obviously oak Chardonnay has very high acidity with very little tannins or some tannins. But when we talk about glass number 3, which is intended for Pinot Noir, you add a little bit of the skin, which adds a little bit of tannins. So when you actually took a sip from glass number 3, you actually had a little bit more of the tannins coming up, which is not what you want.
It is a little more closed off.
Yeah. And again, if you were to have this wine in the same glass, this wine in this glass as your first experience, it's not that refreshing, buttery, creamy, elegant wine that we experienced from glass number 2.
Yeah. And, we're enjoying these and seeing the differences. One question that we got, because I survey a lot of people on glassware and all that, and they love to have a collection of these different glasswares. But we also talk about universal glassware. And I know this is not universal glassware, but is there a shape here that's more universal to you or not at all?
No.
None. No. There's no.
Not to our core.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's true.
So it's tough for us to answer universal. Universal can mean a lot of things. I think generally speaking, universal means one glass for everything.
Yeah.
And the answer is no, not in our world.
A lot of people do use one glass for everything. So the point of this is to show them why it matters.
Especially, unfortunately, some of our favorite restaurants, they're using one or maybe 2 shapes. So think about that. But we do in our some other collections have what we consider wine friendly, a bit of an entry level where there could be one size that could work. But in our core, in our DNA, having the right glass for every single wine is what we need.
Yeah, it's
To its full expression.
And I understand that the other day we went to dinner at Lafayette. I was at Lafayette Steakhouse in Miami, and we had like a horizontal of different wines. We had white, we had red, we had champagne, and they had like the fleet of all these different wines, and it was one of the greatest tasting experiences ever. But it is a big investment, right, for a restaurant to have these different glasswares, for cleaning them, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is worth it.
Absolutely.
If you're trying to target that next level.
I think if they're paying attention to the quality of the ingredients that they're serving in your food and obviously the wine service level, they should have appropriate wine glasses. It's the same exact idea.
Yeah. It's like serving a steak with a butter knife.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Or the quality of the steak to begin with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because obviously, depending on where you go, you're paying for that quality of the steak. And of course, you're also technically pairing it with some nicer wines. And if you don't have the appropriate glassware, could definitely make a bit of a difference.
Wow. And as the wine opens up, I feel like this exercise is even more pronounced.
Absolutely. And again, as you know, as time passes by, the glassware are kind of aerating the wine as itself. So the same wine that we just enjoyed 5 minutes ago definitely has changed a little bit. So let's go back to glass number 2, which is our Chardonnay glass.
The good, the bad, the ugly.
That's a quote from Mr. Maximilian Riedel, by the way. Don't tell him that I
Okay.
stole that one. So I referenced him.
Maximilian, you can't watch this. This is not for you to watch.
So back to glass number 2, our Chardonnay glass. Again, just on the nose, that buttery note, just definitely. And for me, I love nosing wine because it gets me motivated. And in my personal opinion, the number 2 varietal nose favorite is Chardonnay. First is Pinot Noir, which you're about to enjoy.
Okay. Your favorite, sorry, say that again. The exercise that you like.
Aroma-wise.
Aroma-wise.
In the right glass, aroma-wise, Chardonnay for me, in the right glass, definitely has that beautiful aroma.
Yeah.
And then the Pinot Noir, which you're about to enjoy, for me, it's my personal favorite nose.
Amazing. Let's go to.
So shall we get one final repair sip from glass number 2, the Chardonnay glass?
Yes, I love the repair sip.
That's a quote from Mr. Riedel himself as well.
Repair sip. Wow.
Again, acidity, fruit component, fruit.
Yeah, I feel
And balanced.
I want to do this blind one day and just I feel like it's so easy to really understand. With one, it's just like it's from the Sauvignon Blanc exercise we did. It's very easy to identify.
All right, so we're done with Chardonnay.
Yeah.
So we need glass 1, 2, and 3 empty.
1, 2, and 3 empty.
Yep.
Okay. And you were saying so Mr. Riedel, he's the 11th generation.
Maximilian Riedel.
Maximilian Riedel, the 11th generation, and this grape varietal specific line started in the 50s, right? And then it's been developed from there, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in, I believe, 1958, it was the first grape varietal specific glass, which is our Sommelier Burgundy Grand Cru glass.
Mm-hmm.
Was introduced to the world in 1973, and it was actually part of the Museum of Modern Art as the most beautiful wine glass ever created. Since then, the Riedel family, through these generations, has understood that obviously each grape needs a glass. So over the years, of course, we've been able to develop glassware that are appropriate exactly as we're experiencing today. But the key thing is that we don't just create wine glasses just because we think this is a great shape for Cabernet or Merlot or Bordeaux, whatever it is. We actually work with winemakers. We actually work with wine critics, region-specific, to create these glasses and actually get their seal of approval that when we introduce a glass that's meant for Chardonnay, it's a perfect Chardonnay glass.
I didn't know that. So you're really consulting. It's not like you're in a room close together to the outside world. This is what we want to do. You're talking to people in the industry.
Yeah, we literally sit down with a specific varietal. We put 30, 40, 50 different glasses in front of them, and on the nose and on the taste component, we eliminate glassware until there's maybe 2 or 3, and we create molds and molds and molds until everybody agrees that that is a perfect Bordeaux glass, that is a perfect Pinot Noir glass, and so forth.
So getting to the point where you select this is the glass is years in the making.
Absolutely,
sometimes.
There's a lot of research.
A lot,
Of course, we now certainly understand for decades now that obviously our tongue, our palate, has these little components, and depending on the DNA of the grape, it's generally speaking going to work perfectly fine.
Yeah.
As long as the rim diameter and the bowl size are perfect for that. You know, we've done champagne glassware for a lot of great famous producers. So even champagne as well, we get to that level. Spirits as well.
Oh yeah. You guys also
Tequila glassware, single malt whiskeys, you name it.
We'll do a tequila tasting for a different podcast, but I'm not driving here before doing that.
We'll take an Uber.
Yeah.
All right, so now we're moving on to Pinot Noir, and please let us know. I think we're talking Paul Hobbs as well.
Yes. So we're talking Paul Hobbs, West Sonoma Coast. Paul's Pinot Noirs are just, I mean, it's on fire. The
this
flavor,
is Russian River.
Obviously, you have the Old World and
just Sonoma. I'm so sorry.
Sonoma, but it is Russian River. Sonoma County is what's on the label, but it is Russian River Valley, I believe, or West Sonoma Coast. But it's all on point. When you think of a Sonoma Pinot Noir compared to Old World Burgundy, I think Sonoma or West Coast Pinots tend to have more volume, more flavor, a bit fuller in body.
Absolutely.
The aromas are absolutely beautiful and just very sexy wine.
I agree.
It's a very sexy wine. So I chose this, and let's give it a taste.
Right.
So 1 to 3.
Let's go to 2, 3, and 4.
2, 3, and 4.
Yeah.
Okay. All good.
2, 3, and 4.
I'm gonna have people listen to that. There we go. Beautiful. We're capturing all the senses here.
Absolutely. Yeah, before the sense of sound, which we'll finalize later as well.
Yeah.
So now focusing on glass number 3, our Pinot Noir Nebbiolo glass. We obviously just tried the Chardonnay. Not exactly a pleasant experience. But I mentioned earlier, in my opinion, the most beautiful nose in wine is Pinot Noir in the right glass. So let's go ahead and pick up glass number 3, our Pinot Noir Nebbiolo glass. Let's go ahead and swirl this beautiful wine. And release some of these aromas.
Yeah, for people listening, so it's a Pinot Noir Nebbiolo glass. Nebbiolo being the grape from Piedmont, Italy, where that goes into Barolo and then Barbaresco. Why is it Pinot Noir and Nebbiolo? Are the properties very similar of these grapes?
Yeah, they're literally the same DNA. By the way, this also goes along with our Burgundian red wines as well. So for us, it's the same glass. So on the nose, I mean...
Yeah, this bottle's definitely being finished very soon.
We need some food. The nose, again, beautiful red fruit component, just elegant, fully expressed, a bouquet of roses. Think about diving into those roses if you have a significant other on Friday, on Valentine's Day, right?
Coming up.
Exactly. It's just a bouquet of beautiful roses here.
This is a Valentine's Day wine.
Yes, it is. Yes,
this will come out after Valentine's Day, but
well, it depends. Hopefully, it's a good date.
Yeah. Well, it's a good date for sure. But I don't. You know what? Let's pour out 2 and 4. I don't even want to try it. This is the glass. I don't even want to. This exercise is over.
So this is why I always like to talk about nosing the wine, because the right wine in the right glass, it just gets you motivated, gets you hungry. And I can't remember the last time I had this beautiful Paul Hobbs Pinot Noir, but again, just that nose, it just pops. It definitely says, please drink me, right? Again, just a beautiful bouquet of red fruit. Definitely for me, a hint of strawberries, raspberries.
Yeah, just ripe cherry.
Just definitely gets you, again, a beautiful bouquet.
Bouquet is the right word, and on the website, it's one of the words that you guys describe. You guys talk about bouquet, texture, taste, and flavor.
Yes.
And bouquet is, I mean, it's not only tasting wine, but I think smelling wine is just as important.
It's just as important, right? Because I think when you're sick, as you know, you're not as hungry because you can't nose, you can't taste. Right? Yeah. So the same idea. If you can't nose the beautiful wine, you can't get the full expression.
Can't.
All right. So the same wine. Let's go to glass number 4, which is our Cabernet Sauvignon glass. Just on the nose. Okay. You really have to dig deep to find the aromas.
Yeah.
And again, much more of a hint of alcohol in there, but not this high definition 4K, 8K definition that we have here.
It's almost like you could be smelling the wine and be like, maybe get the vintage off as well.
Yeah.
This is a 2022 vintage. Paul and his team were able to make a fantastic wine despite the heat challenges during that year. The heat spike really hurt a lot of wineries, but they just taste very different to where you might think like this is a different vintage.
Yeah, and I think you definitely hit the nail on the head. I think you definitely get a bit more of a spicy note.
Yep. I'm getting that.
Again, bit more of a alcohol nose, which is not what you want.
You don't want that burn. You don't want that burn. You
want glass number 3. You want to dive in. You want to take a bath in this.
Ooh, smooth.
All right.
Okay.
Glass number 2.
Okay.
Which is meant for Chardonnay. Let's see what happens to Pinot Noir on the nose. Just on the nose.
This is the oak Chardonnay.
This is the oak
glass.
Chardonnay. Yeah, it's a bit of an eyesore for me right now. And again, where's the wine?
Muted. It's muted. It's
non-existent. You can visually see that there's wine in there, but on the nose, non-existent. So again, how could you get excited and motivated if you can't nose?
Yeah. When you're doing these seminars you're doing it in front of one person. When you're doing it in front of 50 people or 100 people, do you get like this giant sigh in the room, or like this like in the room?
Absolutely,
or like visual, you see people experiencing what you're feeling.
Yeah, it's a pretty awesome feeling when you see somebody go, oh my God.
Yeah.
Or they're tapping their partner and like, oh my God.
You close the sale there. I mean, that's just
at that
like,
point, mic drop and
mic drop. How many do you want? Go home. That's it. That's all you need. Exactly. Yeah, it's very true.
All right, back to glass number 3, our Pinot Noir glass.
Yeah.
And again, I cannot stop nosing this wine. I'm surprised I haven't had a sip just yet. But let's focus again on the rim diameter. Clearly here, the rim diameter, when we take a sip from this glass, you're going to notice just behind the tip of the tongue, balancing the acidity, a little bit of the tannins, but once again, boosting the fruit component that the wine has to offer.
Yeah.
And let's focus on the structure of the wine. Let's focus on the temperature of the wine, and let's focus on the finish of the wine.
Okay. Temperature, structure, and finish.
All right. See, that one I did not spit out. I'm Ubering.
Wow.
Here.
Yeah.
So, temperature, especially in red wine, and especially in Pinot Noir, such an important factor. So you notice now that this wine, you have to tilt your head back a little bit to get the wine out. Hits you right behind the tip of the tongue. Fruit, a little bit of acidity, a little bit of the tannins, beautifully balanced, and fruit component. Silky smooth wine.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people have the misconception that red wine is dry or bitter. But Pinot Noir, look how smooth, look how elegant this wine is. Whether you're pairing this with a filet mignon or some salmon, some chicken, whatever it may be, it's just, in my opinion, a wine that kind of pairs with all types of foods.
Yeah, it's like where it hits is where the journey starts. And that's why I think it's very important to, like you said, just behind the tip of the tongue, that's where the journey starts.
Exactly.
And if the journey starts in a bad place.
And the longevity of the wine. As you and I are speaking, we can still feel the lingering of the palate here.
I got red fruit just.
Exactly. So this is where it becomes important food and wine pair, right? Because when you walk into your favorite restaurant, whether it's a steakhouse or whatever it is, you kind of already know what you're going to order, right?
Yeah.
And then you order, of course, the wine before you get to try the steak or whatever it is. So you hope that whatever you ordered will pair perfectly fine with the wine that you are kind of mixing and matching. So if you were to have pre-ordered a filet mignon with this beautiful wine in this glass, perfect experience. Versus, unfortunately, you may be served in a glass like number 4, which is meant for Cabernet Sauvignon. So let's see what happens.
Yeah. That's a good point as well, food pairing. Structure, it's not the same structure.
So now you notice much more dry, much more bitter, and the aftertaste, very short. So this glass now showed tannins, which is not what you want from Pinot Noir. The glass did exactly what it's intended to do, manage tannins. But we don't want to show tannins in Pinot Noir. We want to show the elegant acidity with fruit that glass number 3 focused on.
Yeah, and I feel like it just too much. It's like a hose that just like is firing off way too much water.
Exactly.
It's not a controlled experience.
So imagine, again, you ordered this wine ahead of time. You thought it was going to pay perfectly well with your filet mignon, medium rare, by the way. But unfortunately, the acidity is lost. The tannins are boosted. And the fruit component that we love, the elegant wine that we thought was going to be pairing perfectly fine with, definitely was lost.
And the whole point of being at a restaurant is, right, eating food is a big part of it, and the food pairing is super, super important. So
Exactly.
yeah, I totally understand where glassware can come along.
Can this experience get any worse?
Let's go to the ugly.
Because remember we talked about Chardonnay and Pinot Noir basically go in the same regions, right? So there's a misconception that one glass work for both. Remember we tried the Chardonnay in the Pinot Noir glass? Not fun. So let's try the reverse, glass number 2. See what happens.
Fuck it, I'm gonna drink it. I was gonna spit in the water cup. But yeah, like here where you were talking about sort of the tannins, here it's more of I feel the burn of the alcohol way more. I feel the herbaceousness of it much more, where here I really feel a holistic, like we talked about, a 360 view at the specialness of this wine. And it's almost like the wrong glass can highlight the wrong things.
100%. Yeah.
Like even if the glass has these flaws in it, maybe the glass can like mute it a little bit. I don't know.
No, yeah, I think there's also a thing that a lot of people ask us the question is, clearly once they get to the third glass, they're like, oh God, all right, I get it. But what if I put a $10 bottle of wine? What's it gonna do? No. It's not gonna make it any better. It's actually may show the flaws even further if it's not such a quality wine. Not to say that a $10 bottle of wine is not a good quality of wine, but sometimes obviously, depending on the price point, some of the quality levels are not there, and definitely will show in a negative way.
Yeah. Let's. I do want to move to that Cabernet.
Sure.
I know we had a great thing. Anything else about the Pinot Noir that we should tackle before we hit?
So first of all, I want to take one more sip.
Okay. The repair.
Yes, the repair sip, because I don't want to leave it in this bitter note here. Again, acidity, fruit component, elegant, structured, balanced.
Oh man.
Right?
Oh man.
So kind of finalizing the glass, as you mentioned earlier, the glass is obviously intended for Pinot Noir, Nebbiolos, Barolos, Barbarescos, of course, our red Burgundy friends. Perfect for all these grape varietals. One of the best things that we actually recommend outside of this is actually rosé champagne.
Rosé champagne for the Pinot Noir glass.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So rosé, champagne, rosé sparkling, as long as it's Pinot Noir dominated. I think I always like to say most people don't taste champagne. They drink champagne.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're served in a flute.
Yeah.
And unless you want to snorkel, you can't nose, right? But champagne obviously is still wine, just has effervescence. But how do you get that beautiful expression in here in a glass like number 1, if it's Blanc de Blanc, or number 3, if it's Pinot Noir, Blanc de Noir. And talk about effervescence, talk about fruit component, glass number 3, if you ever have the chance, in a rosé champagne.
Yeah. And regular rosé too, or no?
No, because depending on the DNA of that rosé, as far as still wine, then we would recommend something for that. And a lot of people ask me, well, what about rosé? And I say, well, what's the dominating grape? Well, it's rosé. Well, it could be Cabernet, it could be Pinot Noir, it could be Grenache, it could be a million things. And for that answer, whatever the dominating grape is the recommended glass.
Got it. Yeah, it's very, very simple to follow. It's great.
All right, so we're done with Pinot Noir.
Yes.
Paul Hobbs, great choice.
Yep. Perfect.
And now we're moving on to Cabernet Sauvignon.
And is it Cabernet Merlot as well, or just Cabernet Sauvignon? For
Cabernet Merlot. So glass number 4 is perfect for what we consider are the Bordeaux varietals. So Cabernet Merlot, of course, Cabernet Franc, Petit Verdot,
or Malbec, or something, or no?
Not so much Malbec.
Okay.
Even though it could be a blend, as you know.
Yeah.
But I would say, have another glass that would be perfect for Malbec.
Okay.
In my opinion, which would be our Syrah glass.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was reading that.
All right. So glass number 4, and I think we forgot to talk about decanting, but it's not a big deal. We can just move on.
This is not a decanter.
It is
folks.
not a decanter.
Not a decanter.
This is definitely not a tailgating glass.
We'll do an episode on decanting.
On decanting? Okay.
Yeah, after.
So let's evenly pour into glass number 3 and glass number 4. Oh, and I just completely overpoured.
Glass 3 and 4?
Yes, and I apologize for that.
No, you're good. Do you need more wine?
No, I do not need more wine.
Okay.
Clearly, I don't need more wine.
4? 3
glass
and 4?
number 3 and number 4.
But speaking of decanting really quick, I mean, the process of decanting, I know Riedel makes very beautiful decanters, but the whole point is to really open up the wine, right? The wine has not been exposed to oxygen, and certain wines need a different amount of time to open up, right?
Yeah, so the Riedel family creates amazing, what we consider handmade decanters, which have a lot of different aesthetics. But just a simple decanter will definitely work wonders. We actually decant champagne.
Yeah, that's a crazy
We also
thing.
decant Chardonnay.
Yeah.
And of course, we decant red wine, whether it's Pinot Noir, Syrah, and of course, Cabernet. And the idea is to soften some of the tannins, soften some of the acidities, and again, boost the fruit component, especially with young Napa Valley wines like this.
Okay, so we got
Paul Hobbs.
2019 Crossbarn.
Crossbarn. So talking about glass number 4, as my table mat is full of wine, which is why I like to wear dark clothes all the time, by the way.
Yeah, no, that's, I'm
glass
lucky
number
so far.
4, now we're talking about the king of wines, Cabernet Sauvignon. And glass number 4 is meant to balance tannins, right? Yep. And I always like to say, if you enjoy Cabernet Sauvignon, you love espressos because you like the bitterness that the wine has to offer. And glass number 4 manages tannins and boosts fruit components. So let's go ahead and nose the wine. Wow.
Oh, it's there. It's there.
I mean, definitely I got a hint of a leather note for me.
Yeah. Yeah, this wine, what Crossbarn is so cool, what's amazing is that it comes, what the bottle doesn't tell you is that it comes from estate vineyards that Paul Hobbs and his team own. Over 95% of it comes from estate vineyards all across Sonoma, and there's also Crossbarn Napa Valley.
Right.
And what it's amazing is it gives you like a full picture of like, this is Sonoma Cabernet, right? Because we have a lot of single vineyard wines that are very pricey, but for like $50, you can really get a whole idea. This is what Sonoma Cabernet should be. But yeah, we're tasting that right now.
Absolutely.
And
So
it's fresher.
Once again, on the nose, I just think it's an absolutely pleasant nose. Exactly what you want from a beautiful Sonoma Cabernet. 2019, I think you said was the vintage.
Yep.
And again, just talk about beautiful fruit component. Definitely, I got a hint of a leather chocolate nose myself. And again, just whether you identify these notes or you say, what is he talking about? Or what is she talking about? I always like to say, is the nose pleasant to you? Is it inviting to you, right? Because a lot of people may not recognize that this might be of a strawberry note or a dry red fruit nose.
Yeah, beautiful.
But on the nose, it's just an elegant
herbal.
nose. Now, the same wine out of glass number 3,
Yeah.
our Pinot Noir glass.
And drinking the wine the way it's supposed to be, as we talked about on another podcast, we talk about, people can like or love, they can love or they can hate wines. And I think when you drink wine the right way out of the right glass, you can really identify, I like Pinot Noir or I don't like Pinot Noir.
And that's always something that we say, especially when we talk about when we're kind of doing these glassware seminars. I always like to say, why don't you give that wine a second chance in the right glass? Because you will be pleasantly surprised that wine that you had, maybe you had at the wrong temperature. Maybe you had at the wrong vessel, right? Or maybe you just had a really bad wine to begin with. But if you try a quality wine in the right glass, you clearly can have a very nice experience.
Give it a second chance.
Exactly.
The right glass is about second chances.
So again, on the nose, Cabernet Sauvignon at glass number 3 is very muted, much more of a perfume note.
Yeah.
Not exactly what you want. So back to glass number 4. Let's get a quick repair nose.
Wow, it's just the integration is there. Here, it's like I'm when you watch a TV and there's like static. Versus here, it's like, okay, I'm watching a TV, 4K resolution.
Exactly.
The Wi-Fi's perfect.
Exactly, yeah.
T-Mobile's giving me 5G full bars.
Exactly.
This is like,
All right.
Yeah.
So we tried Pinot Noir in glass number 4. Not a fun experience. Remember, it was tannins. Now we have the right wine in the right glass. So let's go ahead and experience it. And I rarely spit out Cabernet Sauvignon. It's my favorite grape. But here, temperature, again, key. Tannins, which is what we want. Soft, subtle. The aftertaste, long. A little bit of bitterness, which is, again, what we want. But look at the beautiful fruit component that follows.
Yeah.
Exactly what you want.
Yeah.
And this wine is very young. It's only 6 years old. But it's soft, smooth, elegant. Temperature, the structure, perfectly fine.
It's all there. And when you say temperature, right? Temperature's an interesting thing to talk about. I think it's a very underrated part of the wine experience. The right glass, what is it doing with temperature there? Because it's more highlighting it.
Well, first of all, serving at the right temperature is key. And you notice our glassware are not these clunky types of glassware that are super heavy. The idea that the thinner the glass actually helps to keep the temperature longer as opposed to thick glass actually take the temperature and actually warms up the wine.
It warms up the wine.
Absolutely.
Also holding it like this. That's why we hold
That's why
here.
we have, if it has a stem on it, you hold it by the stem.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
the key.
Exactly. Or when you're a pro, I don't know, maybe like this. The base is really big, which I like on this.
It's actually one of the largest bases that we've ever produced.
I love
and by the way,
big
one of the
base.
key things to tell if it's a good quality glass is looking at the base. If the wider the base, the better the quality.
The wider the base, the better the quality.
Absolutely.
You heard it from the pro.
Yeah, because as you can see, we love beautiful bases. First of all, it matches the aesthetics, but also gives it a beautiful balance so they don't tip over so easily.
Yeah, that does tend to happen. But you really see the difference here. I think like with the Cabernet, I think is like that and the Sauvignon Blanc was where I saw the biggest differences.
Absolutely.
To be honest, the other ones you see the differences, but this is like wow, okay.
So,
Like, get me the right glass, or I'm leaving.
or you can bring your own.
Yeah, we're bringing.
So let's go try the glass number 3, which is our Cabernet Sauvignon friend. And as you're going to experience, all you're going to experience is acidity.
Say that again. All you're going to experience is the acidity.
You see how your mouth began to water
Yeah.
as soon as you took a sip? That is the acidity of the wine unbalanced. Not what you want. You don't want Cabernet Sauvignon because of the acidity. You want Pinot Noir for the acidity. So it completely changes the structure. Now you have a much more bitter, much more dry, and the aftertaste, very short-lived. So again, thinking about food and wine pairing, and as we all know, Cabernet Sauvignon tends to be a little bit more on the expensive side on the wine list. Not what you want as far as food and wine pairing.
Mm-hmm. If you're spending a lot on wine, you gotta make sure that those. And when you do spend a certain amount of on a bottle, they tend to bring you nicer glassware. But even that nicer glassware,
Sometimes.
sometimes,
Depending on the restaurant.
yeah. Yeah.
All right, our final repair sip out of glass number 4. But before we do that, we haven't talked about sound. And we love cheering belly to belly.
Belly to belly. Belly to belly.
Belly to belly. And
Okay.
of course, as we all know, you always
God.
look at each other's eyes and then you take a sip and then you cheers.
Salud.
Salud.
Wow.
2019. Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Julio, I wanna ask you. You know, can you tell me what your dream wine would be in each of these glasses? I know it's a big question,
In each of these glasses.
but you have a Sauvignon Blanc, you have a Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, or a dream vintage. I don't know. It doesn't have to be a specific producer. But
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know if I would say a specific producer, but I don't know if specific wine just because I love all types of wines. And I always like to say, depending on the mood,
yeah,
it could be any
or,
wine.
or you said your favorite was Cabernet, but like you like the Bordeaux.
Yeah, I mean, again, for me, Cabernet is my heart.
It's your heart.
But I love Pinot Noirs. I love Chardonnay. I love
Yeah.
Sauvignon Blanc. I love Syrahs. I love Spanish wine. So it just depends on the mood. I'm a bit weird. Obviously, I like to, if I'm having Spanish food, I'm going to have a Spanish wine. If I'm
Yeah.
having Italian food, I'm having Italian wine. If I'm having steak,
yeah.
for the most part, probably going to have a Napa Valley Cabernet if I can afford it.
Yeah.
But I guess it just depends on the mood, right?
Exactly.
And I think if you love wine, you also want to learn about wines. And every day I learn about a different wine, right? Whether it's the varietal, the country, the vintage, whatever it may be. So I just really think it's an evolving thing. And as we know, we aren't eating the same foods that we were drinking 10 or 15, 20 years ago, right? And our palate also progresses, right? Because I used to love Cabernet, and I still do. But these days, I'm trending more towards Pinot Noirs and maybe a little bit on the lighter side.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
but
yeah.
again, it depends on the mood.
Exactly. No, it's very true. It definitely depends on the mood. And when you're in Florida and it's really, really hot in the summer months, I mean, a nice Riesling or a nice
Yeah.
Sauvignon Blanc
Exactly.
is incredible.
Exactly.
But and these, if I want to bring these to a restaurant, like they come in, you guys have like a case, like so you look like a baller when you're coming in with
There's a thing called a Riedel bring your own bag.
bring your own bag.
Bring your own bag, and you make a statement. If they don't have the right glassware, you make a statement.
No, it's incredible. It's incredible. Well, Julio, one more time, belly to belly with the right glass.
With the right glass. Pick your glass. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
Thank you.